I'd like to welcome our final speaker of the night to the stage. Ossco Bolton is going to share a story about truly investing in and considering our youth.
Thank you. Testing. Okay. First of all, that wasn't fair to come up after her. I'm like, man, but it really speaks to what I want to talk about, because every day I work with young people of all age groups, all races, all languages. I'm in a school right now that has about 50 different languages in it. But one thing I find, no matter where I go, whether I'm in suburbia, whether I'm in the ghettos, whether I'm in the inner cities, the young people still seem second level or second class. And it's like, when I see young people, I will ask a mother, how old is your daughter? Oh, she's 11 months old. Hey, welcome to Earth. And it's like, when do we start to look at how do we welcome our young people? And we wonder how the gangs get them. We wonder how the criminals get them. We wonder how they form mafias and cartels. It's because we haven't poured into them. And now, as I'm listening, I see what's happening with us. A lot of us are going through life. We become adults and we get so far removed from that child in us because we've gained degrees, we've gained privileges, we've gained, levels in business, on the job, and we've been so far removed. We want success. America sells us, we all want Lamborghinis and yachts. But what that does is it means that some young person somewhere is left alone. When I wake up, I wonder how many young girls and young boys were touched last night. 4.9 million children murdered around the world every year. 4.9 million children murdered around the world every year. You would think we would sound the same alarm we hear when a tornado comes, but we don't. Children being murdered, silence and hollowness left in that family. Children that could be saved. We don't see them as superheroes anymore. We see them as liabilities and not assets. But look at us. Look what we've come through. Look what we all survived. Many of us have hidden stories. But remember, your story is hidden. It's your past story. For so many of our young people, it's their current story. Think about that. Your past story, your past experience is their current experience. How can we dare not tell them that they are superheroes? Think about this. For the only reason we exist today, the only reason you get up and you go to work, the only reason we keep building more highways and putting up towers is for who? It's the people that come after us. If every child 18 and under disappeared today, everything that we do and say would be irrelevant from this point on. We have no point of making new cars. There would be no point of building new skyscrapers. No point of making fresh airplanes or doing more electric cars or anything. Because 100 years from now, that means all of us will be gone. All of us. And when I walk into school and I ask the question, how many of you all are being bullied? And 80% of my students raise their hand. And we're talking third, fourth, and fifth grade people. I ain't even talking about middle and high school. I'm talking about third, fourth, and fifth graders. Raise their hand. I said, okay, put your hands down. Raise your hand if you're currently being bullied. A third of them raise their hand. In a school full of adults, children are being bullied under their noses because we still see them as what? They're just cattle. Just this thing in the way that we got to get through to the next grade. How do we expect them to become these true adults and see us for what we're supposed to? We're supposed to be this superhero to them, but we're not that. And I wish I could just open up a whole gate and just be able to talk to every young person and say, please forgive me for not being man enough, not being bold enough, not being warrior enough to stand up and fight for you, no matter what it costs. They need us to have a voice for them. We don't show up in the courtrooms for them. We blame them for the lifestyle that they were born in. We blame them because they wasn't raised with the mom and dad that we have. We blame them because they wasn't raised in the house we were raised in. How is that fair? How is that fair? That a 8-year-old can go to mom and say, Mom, I've been touched by your boyfriend, and then get hit by moms and say, you shut up. I don't believe that. He would never do that. Where does she go with that? And let alone being a boy, especially if a boy that's touched by a woman or an adult female. Let me just take that back, because a woman wouldn't do that. Men and women don't harm children. But the fact that even that boy couldn't even speak up because people would laugh at him. Especially if a boy said, Mom, your best friend, I'm only 12, she kissed me in my mouth. If he tell his uncle that, then his uncle gonna laugh at him. Well, boy, you should have enjoyed it. Like, what? She shouldn't be touching me. She shouldn't, where do I fit in? Where's my space? We only celebrate children, we only recognize them in 2 areas. When they first get here and if they're killed. When they first get here or when they're killed. When they first come, we got the cameras out. We doing all these balloons, and if it's pink or is it blue. We bring stuff to them for the, especially you grandmothers, and y'all show up with everything for them. But man, it's the process right before we lose a child. Then we show up again with different balloons that we want to release, to talk about them, to recognize them, to cry over them. But we didn't show up for them when they were here. And that's got to be the key that we have to look at. Do we truly value our children? You can't see it when it comes to politics, because the bad guy can touch, a guy could get less time in prison for sleeping with a 5-year-old than an 18-year-old selling illegal drugs to a 50-year-old. That 18-year-old get more time in prison, federal time, and we'll go after them like they just this evil person. Well, how dare you sell these drugs to the community? But then here this guy, 50, 60 years old, sleeping with a 5-year-old, a 10-year-old, a 13-year-old, and he barely gets 5 years in prison. Show me how, as a young person, you would feel like this place cares about you. That we care more about an adult than we do the children. We spend so many resources repairing broken adults, and we spend a limited amount helping our children. That's an unfair advantage that our children have to survive in a world full of adults who only care about adult issues. Adults that, when mom's rather show up for the boss than show up for her children. When dad rather abandon the children than be there for them and be that fight for them, be that wall for them. Whether it be an auntie, a cousin. And I'm saying we have to start thinking about these things at a higher level. They have to be things that you go to sleep thinking about, things you wake up thinking about. Because we are in this country, we got bombs that we would shoot at any other country because they're hurting adults. But we won't bomb for our children. And I'm not even talking about physical bombs. I mean, just get up and be a loud voice for young people. How dare that? How dare that? I didn't even think the community cared until my 11-month-old nephew was murdered in a drive-by. That my mother took the time to say she wanted to pray for me. I didn't want to hear it. I'm living that lifestyle. I didn't want to hear that. I'm still a teenager, though. And she goes in the house. She's holding my nephew. And during the prayer, these guys, they did the drive-by, and about 5 gunshots rang out before we even knew to duck down. And after they finished shooting, I heard my mother scream. She's holding an 11-month-old baby, and he's still breathing. He's bleeding out of his eyes, his nose, his mouth, his ears. Anywhere pressure could come out. And I was so angry. But I was mad at myself because I said I brought this onto my family. And at the same time, my nephew, he taught me something in the 5 minutes that he lived. See, he didn't get to complain about who's playing next on the video game. He didn't get to complain about who ate up all the cereal. He don't get to complain about when it's too hot outside or it's too cold or you screaming at your child for leaving the light on. He doesn't get to do those things. And it taught me something. That this little baby took a bullet to the back and went through his body and lodged in his cheek. And for 5 minutes, he lay there just looking at us. And I was like, who am I to complain? Who am I to complain? But it was grown folks that showed up in that yard 2 weeks later in a circle praying for my family that made me realize somebody does care. But listen, you all, it shouldn't have took my nephew's life being sacrificed before grown folks showed up to this family to say we care. And my ask is that if you just took out of 30 days of your life, each month, just told 10 children that you love them and they're important to us. And I say the word us, that means they're important to this world. Reminding children that we value them, that they're the reason, that they're our sole purpose for waking up. They're our sole purpose for the fight, not just with these, but with here and here. This is easy. The hard stuff, men in the room, is you can stop to tell your son how important he is, how powerful he is, and that he is your superhero. And then stop to tell other children the same thing. When I walk into school in the mornings and I see all them little bitties around me, 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, they say, Mr. Ossco, why are you so happy? I said, do y'all not understand I get to hang out with the most important people on the planet? One little girl said, you talking about, my mama's the most important person. I said, go home and ask your mama who the most important person is. And when she came back that following week, when I came back, she said, my mama said I am. Exactly. But I said, you all are the most important people on the planet. You all are my superheroes. We don't know what they go through. We don't see their tears. All we know is the outcomes of when they become teenagers. They become these things that have attitudes. They become fast-tailed girls. They become talkative, and they talk back. But do you not understand that comes from somewhere? And if you get out of your God complex long enough, then you can say, wait a minute, this little girl is having issues. There's something that's fueling that. This little boy, the way he acts, this teenager, something is fueling that. So I had to remove myself out of the way and find out what is bothering you, man. What happened? Young lady, what happened? The police came in last night and took my mother to jail. Now I had to fix breakfast and for the 6-year-old, the 10-year-old, and the 11-year-old. And we don't know when mama's coming back. Well, did you tell the teacher? I don't trust them. I look at them as the enemy. And I said, what? Let this teacher know before you get kicked out because you didn't bring anything to class. And she told the teacher, do you know immediately that teacher said, oh my God. She went and got a notebook, got a pencil for her, talked to her, and they both cried together. But if we take the time to find out what is fueling this thing behind our youth and this attitude, the anger, we don't know when our girls are being touched. How am I sitting in a school and this girl knew me 2 hours in group? Listen to this. 16 years old, 2 hours in group. This girl been suspended, ISS, because she curses all the time and she talks back. I asked 2 questions. One, if you could change anything that happened in your past, 2 things, what would that be? When it came to her, she said she was molested from the time from 5 years old till she was 9. And that stopped because grandpa died. And when grandpa died, dad picked up. But dad wasn't her dad. He'd been in her life since she was 2 months old. And then stepbrother took over after that. From 5 years old to 15, and I got her in my group at 16. Why did she tell Mr. Ossco this after 2 hours of knowing me, but she'd been in the building 3 years, and none of these teachers knew that? We got to get that God complex off. Who are we? Who are we? And I hate to say this, but I got to say it, because y'all don't give me the mic no more. One thing I'm thankful that human beings all have in common is a butthole. Because even with that butthole, you think you God. You think you all that. But no matter if your house have 40 bathrooms or if your house have just 1 bathroom, it's all used for the same purpose. It's all used for the same purpose. And I never walk around thinking I'm better, bigger, or nothing. And like I tell every young person, the only thing that keeps Mr. Ossco even elevated above you is what I know. Let me teach you what I know, and we're going to elevate together. And it's okay, you all, to come down to that level to them and say, you are special, you somebody. And finding that little girl that just don't have any friends and say, you are powerful. I knew we was in trouble and I can't even remember her name, and I hate it. She made the news. And some of the older people in the room remember that little girl that was in the pageant. Just a beautiful little blonde head. She had the lip. Look, see, y'all know. And she came up missing. And I said, as a black man, if this country don't fight for a little white girl like that, they not gonna fight for me. If they not gonna fight for this little bitty white girl, beautiful in a pageant, and she come up dead, then they're definitely not gonna fight for me. And if we don't turn this around as a country, with over 400,000 children coming up missing every year in this country, we haven't sounded one alarm. And what is this country waiting on before it wakes up to say we're gonna fight for our children? Is there some super special family that we're waiting on their child to get killed first before we decide it's important now? Are we waiting on our own to die? What is that one thing that we're waiting on? And I hope that we don't have to lose 1,000 more children being abused verbally and mentally. What are we waiting on? And all I'm asking is that we take the time to look at our own walk, because there are little versions of you walking around the country every single day, and they've had your experiences and they're having it right now. And you have the power, because you overcame it, to go get them and let them know they're important. I don't have to know you. You don't have to look like me. You could have the blonde hair. You could be 30 years older than me, 40 years older than me. You could live in the suburbs. It doesn't matter. If you tell me I'm special, I believe you. Because when you tell me I'm nothing, I believe you. And it's up to us to tell our young people that they are something, that they are somebody. And we can change the trajectory of where our country is going, because we create new leaders that fight for little people, that don't forget when they were little, that do not forget when they were little. And I'm reminded every single day. I keep my nephew's picture up there, and the days that I want to quit, I can hear my nephew, 11 months old, saying, "Uncle, keep going, Unc, keep going." And when I see young people who are married now, see, the posse is 30 years old in October. Over 6,000 young people of every culture that have been involved with this. And I'm loving it. Even had students that had to translate to each other from deep down from Mexico, from South America, from Africa, just sitting in group laughing. And it took a minute, because I would say something funny, everybody would laugh, and then they would kick in after they was translated, kind of like what we got going on right now. But it's big, because we're not mean like people think we are. And I want to end with this. I want you to think about this. If a rattlesnake wanted to bite you, would it rattle its rattler? Think about that. You don't see the snake. If you get too close to it, it rattles a rattler. That is a warning. When you see young people, I don't care what culture they come from, when you see the attitude, that's them rattling their rattlers, because they don't know how to survive. They've been in fight mode since they were little bitty. You just don't know that. And so when you see some of these, what you call your gangbangers, whether they white or Hispanic or black, you see them, they doing this, that's the rattler. Like, hey, don't mess with me, yo. But inside, they're scared. Inside, that snake is like, hey, please back up, because you might hurt me. And so the only thing I know how to do, and what my nature says, fight. I don't want to turn and run because you might harm me. We have a lot of young people that are in shells, and they don't feel like they're important. Anytime a young man, a teenager can shoot up a school, that community has failed them. And I'm going to call it like it is. Where were the men at? And guess what, grown men? Sometimes it's just a matter of taking a boy fishing. Guess what, ladies? Sometimes it's just a matter of sitting that girl down, taking her somewhere, getting her nails done, showing her how special you are, get her hair done. $50, $100 could have saved a whole school of children from being gunned down. When you have middle school boys that know how to push their alarm and wait outside and gun down teachers and students, what's going on with them? What's missing? We haven't told them that they're superheroes, because superheroes protect, they don't hurt. And I want every young person in this country and around the world to know that we know that they are important. And so my ask again is, when you see our youth, tell them that you love them, tell them how special they are, and let them know that they are our true superheroes, that's who they are to us. And then watch what happens. Watch what happens when our youth are overwhelmed with layers and layers of love, layers and layers of superhero. Shoot, I remember my grandmother gave me my first towel and put the safety pin in it with my little Scooby-Doo underwear on, and I flew around the whole house, jumping off couches. She took my Spider-Man underwear because I kept trying to climb up the house and falling. But other than that, I'm saying, but I understood that. I wanted to be Superman. I wanted to be Batman. I wanted to be Spider-Man. I wanted the bad guys to stop doing what they're doing and being bad and hurting people. But what happened? Not enough people told me I was anything. Not enough people showed up. And so I wound up getting with people and wound up getting branded like a cattle on my arm. Wound up getting a chipped tooth so I don't smile and cheese because I got a chipped tooth from shooting up houses and being shot at, bullet wounds in my body. Watching going after the funeral after funeral. But once I understood that I had power to hurt my family, I said, okay, God, if I got the power to hurt my family, if I turn my life around, I got the power to bring joy. Tell a young person you love them. Thank you.